energy independence than we have been in decades.
For most of the last 60 years, we guaranteed the sea lanes and energy access in order to power global trade. We no longer have an interest in that anymore, and that's a problem for countries that import energy like China.
If the U.S. pulls out, very likely they will go after each other.
In 1967 is when the current relations with Israel were pretty much established. Israel performed a major service to the United States by destroying a secular Arab nationalism, a major enemy of the United States, and supporting radical Islam, which the U.S. supported. At one point, Israel began to run out of munitions during the assault, despite the fact that it's armed to the teeth. That the United States provided Israel with additional munitions through the Pentagon. And notice where they were taken from. These were U.S. munitions pre-positioned in Israel for eventual use by U.S. forces. One of many signs of how Israel is regarded as essentially a military offshoot of the United States.
Let's assume for the moment that all the hype about their economy is true, which it's not. Look at a map. There's that line of islands: Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore. All of them U.S. allies, all of them have cruise missiles. They can shut China off from the international system in a matter of days without the 7th Fleet getting involved.
If you look at this satellite image from 2014, you can see huge Chinese ships collecting around remote reefs in the Spratly Islands, an archipelago in the South China Sea. In this image, these ships are rapidly pumping sand and rock up onto the reef. They're building islands. And less than a year later, the Chinese had seaports, air bases, and buildings on their new island.
In the same way that the Bretton Woods system is America's global soft power policy, Beijing intends to replicate that soft power experience in Asia with the Belt and Road Initiative.
Practice, I will tell you, over the last several years, in almost every single incident, some of which are public, many of which are not, in which the United States has said to the Chinese government, stop what you're doing, you're violating our interests, we're going to take a principled stand here, and if you don't, there are going to be these consequences. China has backed down on every single occasion.
маловероятны. Но войны такого гибридного, локального характера, они очевидны. Как мы можем видеть действия Соединенных Штатов против нас? Вот очень хорошо на Иране отрабатывают.
Should Iran be able to intercept even briefly shipments out of the Persian Gulf, the entire global structure would break down.
If Iranian exports are pushed all the way down to zero, Tehran could view that as very clearly as an act of war. They've threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, through which 1 in 5, 20% of all oil produced globally passes through that strait, which is a tremendous tail risk to the oil market.
I can't tell you if the use of force in Iraq today would last 5 days or 5 weeks or 5 months, but it certainly isn't going to last any longer than that.
Do you think the American people are prepared for a long, costly, and bloody battle with significant American casualties?
Well, I don't think it's likely to unfold that way, Tim, because I really do believe we will be greeted as liberators.
The war, in some fundamental way, is in part responsible for the crisis, for the downturn that we're in, and it's responsible in a second way because the budget constraints resulting from the high deficits and the high debt are forcing us, the public discussion, to austerity, and rather than having what economists call the counter-cyclical policies that would avoid the economy, we're contracting.
Несчастного Кувейта, чтобы продвинуться на несколько километров, американцы сосредоточили 500 000 солдат. Они напрягли всю свою армию.
3 месяца. 3 месяца.
Они полгода готовили операцию, чтобы собрать логистику для краткосрочной войны. С Ираном это невозможно. Мало того, сейчас военные же думают по-другому, не как политики. Сосредоточить все американские силы на Иране – это оголить Дальний Восток и дать Китаю свободные руки. Первое, что сделают китайцы, когда американцы сосредоточатся на Иране, свернут голову Тайваню.
What they have is a whole bunch of U.S. equipment stored there. Their hope that the U.S. is going to show up and use it.
Iran is already the military superpower of the region. The only country in the world that can potentially hold them back is the United States.
Передачи говорил, единственный путь, который может привести...
Взрывать изнутри.
Нет, да, взрывать изнутри. Я говорил о 3 направлениях: Белуджистан, значит, Курдистан и особенно Хузистан. И совсем, значит, примыкает к Персидскому.
Fighters from Syria, Iraq, and elsewhere are regrouping in the virtually impregnable mountains of Afghanistan, plotting revenge